Welcome in to the Bro for Squad podcast, where we are just a bunch of bros drinking beer and talking movies. This is our spoiler view of Leave the World Behind. I am your host, the Mayor Jeff Hornacek, joined by the American hero Nate Thurman to review this movie as we do all of our movie reviews, using the 5 Bro for Squad criteria, which is the acting, the story, our favorite scene, the impact of the movie, and its rewatchability. Nate, Netflix original here. I think the trailer came on both our radars around the same time, and we're both pretty big Mahershala Ali heads. So before we even dive into the acting and cast, what were your thoughts coming into this film, like anticipation-wise, or what were you expecting?
Yeah, I had pretty big expectations. Netflix has been putting out some good shit lately, so I was pretty excited when I saw this. I think I texted you like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was like, have you seen this? And you're like, yeah, it comes out like December. I was like, damn it, I thought it was already out. So yeah, I had to wait longer than I wanted to. So yeah, it just came out this last week. But yeah, kind of checked all my boxes with the cast in it, and then it seemed kind of thriller-ish, which I always enjoy. It did have a little different cinematography take than I thought it was going to originally, and it was a shot a little
very
different.
Unique.
Yeah, very unique. So that aspect was nice. It was kind of a surprise. But yeah, I had huge expectations and ended up, ultimately we'll get into it, but I really liked the movie.
Yeah, so let's dive right in. Acting and cast. I think that's one of the big sells here, right, is massive stars at the top of this thing. Julia Roberts, Mahershala Ali, Ethan Hawke, and then, of course, Kevin Bacon in it. And Mahershala Ali is not in enough stuff, and Julia Roberts and Ethan Hawke seem to choose their roles very carefully. So I think that was part of my anticipation, too, coming in. Is like for them to all settle on a script and say, that's a project I want to do. I was like, all right, there has to be something here. So who stood out for you, positive or negative, in the cast? I kind of like how it's a smaller cast, too.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You really get to dive deeper into the characters a little bit more because, yeah, you have basically 6 main characters, and that's it. And then Kevin Bacon's kind of a tertiary character. But someone who stood out to me, I really liked Ethan Hawke's character, kind of the laissez-faire dad that's kind of trying to hold everything together at the beginning. I wouldn't say he's naive.
I can't tell if I was going to say, I can't tell if he's just like trying to be the calm force, or if he actually just is like so fucking oblivious to what's going. Because like even the oil tanker scene, he's like, yeah, it's fine. I'm like, bro, that is not happen at the beach.
That never happened. That's never happened before, and you're just kind of okay, I guess that's gonna roll up on the beach. I guess we should go get some Starbucks now or something.
Yeah, which is they literally.
Yeah. Overall, all the acting in this was great. It had a lot to it. It had a lot of scenes with a lot of multiple people, and it had some good dialogue with a lot of people in certain scenes, especially with Julia Roberts and Mahershala Ali's character. I think everyone did great in like the immediate cast, but yeah, Ethan Hawke's character really stood out to me. I loved following him along throughout the whole movie, and then towards the end when he literally is trying to do the only thing he can do and save his son, and he just literally breaks and says, I'm useless. I don't have a GPS. I don't have shit. I can't do anything. I'm trying to do the one thing I can do. And like I thought the culmination and the journey that we went on with him was really cool in that ultimate scene.
It's weird in a 2-hour, 20-minute movie where like a guy's a main character to be like, I wish we had more of him, of Ethan Hawke's character, Clay. But I don't know. I feel like he was just used so prudently, like wisely, to where nobody was overexposed in this.
Yeah.
Mahershala Ali is incredible. Just like such a calm but commanding presence in this movie.
So good. Yeah.
And a really fun, I don't know if character arc is the right word because it is such a short movie, but like, characters' journeys don't take place over a long period of time, but just the way he plays this character in the beginning where you're like, is this guy totally full of shit and playing these guys? And then you realize that he's not. Everything he said is actually true. It's just like, you kind of feel like Julia Roberts' character where you're like, I'm sorry that I didn't believe you in the beginning, because you actually have been one of the few people in this but like you have been completely truthful about everything you said. I just felt like it was like a sort of personal connection I had with the character. What did you think about Maya Law? I think that's how you say your name. Who played his daughter Ruth? I'd only seen her in one other thing, which was a Black Mirror episode that she was pretty good in. But It's interesting in this because I would say of all the characters, she might be the most one note in it. Like we are supposed to hate her the entire time. I think even in the end, when her and Julia Roberts have their moment with each other, I'm still kind of like, yeah, but you're just a bitch to everyone. But I felt like she was kind of a necessary counterbalance to Mahershala Ali's character. It was like probably being overly polite and courteous in
Yeah.
considering what the situation was. I was curious how she worked for you.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. Everyone else has at least a little bit of an arc. Yeah, she's kind of just the same thing throughout, and it's pretty well known like what she's worried about. She's worried about losing her mom. She doesn't know where her mother is. And at the end of the day, yeah, there's just not enough redemption or resolution to say she had like a full character arc or anything. Uh, she kind of connects with Julia Roberts' character at the end when they're trying to scare the deer off, and Julia Roberts has her long monologue. Um, but I think it was just, I'm not saying it hurt the film or anything, but it's just a little too late at that point to really add any
Yeah.
depth or anything to her character. I'd like to see her in something else. But yeah, I don't think her full repertoire of acting was shown off here.
For sure. Last thing I'll say really briefly, both the Sanford kids I thought were awesome. Charlie Evans as Archie and then Farrah McKenzie as Rose. I think we might talk. What my favorite moment in the whole movie is the very last shot with Rose, and I thought she played her character very, very well. She's very quirky, but at the same time, like the child's view of these events is, I think, a very important perspective to get in it. And sometimes I think you realize, like kids, even though they might say something that seems utterly ridiculous and like very clueless based on their emotional maturity, it might actually be the best, the smartest thing anyone in the room has said.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. They played the brother and sister dynamic really well. 2 points. 1 point to that is when they're in the barn and she says, "No one gives a fuck what I say." And he's like,
"Oh my
yeah,
god,
probably right." Yeah, it's a good point. And two points I'll make to that. As far as the kids, they play the brother sister dynamic really well. One of the small things that a line back and forth between them that I really liked is when they're in the shed. The daughter says, "No one gives a fuck what I say." The brother just like goes back nonchalantly, "Yeah, you're probably right," which played off perfectly. And then another thing that you pointed out is having the child's perspective in these movies is really important, and seeing how they kind of go through events like this. So when Archie is starting to lose his teeth, I think he's on the couch with Julie Roberts' character. She blows up about saying he's sick, and he pops up, "I'm not sick." He just completely disconnects him being sick as far as like throwing up or having an upset stomach with his teeth falling out. He's like, "I'm not sick. My teeth are just falling out." I'm like, okay, you're pretty fucked up.
This happens.
I thought that was pretty funny.
And it's always funny in like these post-apocalyptic type movies if there's a child in it, because they don't realize the magnitude of it, because to them, like everything is the end of the world, right? They could lose like a toy of theirs, and it's the same as literally cyber hack, a terrorist attacking our network. So they don't have like the ability to differentiate, and so their like responses is really funny.
Yeah, it's funny. One last thing, you keep mentioning things, it makes me think of things. But in The Last of Us, and I think when we reviewed this, I mentioned it. Most of the only happy people in the series, the HBO series, The Last of Us, are the kids. It should be because they're moldable, they're adaptable. This is all they know is this new apocalyptic world that they've lived in The Last of Us. So it's kind of that same dynamic. They're just going to adapt to the situation, be like, "Huh, this is it."
Yeah, I wish I could have the mind of a child.
That'd be awesome.
All right, next up is the story and plot and the synopsis according to IMDb. And again, full spoilers here, although if you're already listening to this, we've already spoiled half the movie. Synopsis is: a family's getaway to a luxurious rental home takes an ominous turn when a cyber attack knocks out their devices and two strangers appear at their door. I can tell you this right now. If I was any network executive and you brought me that pitch, even without this cast, I would say, I'm in. When can we start fucking making this movie? Just a very interesting concept. And I know that books that are adapted into films sometimes don't always work because of the density of plots, but I thought the 4 parts really worked well in this movie as far as like pacing the story. And they all ended on like pretty nice cliffhangers. Like if you had to take a break at any of those moments, it would be almost like really good episodic TV. What did you think of the story here?
I really enjoyed it. I thought I was going to be frustrated maybe like halfway or 2/3 of the way through the movie because I didn't know how much they were going to wrap up. Um, but to your point, you just made a second ago, it has like the kind of the different stages, which is kind of a nice element, and it kind of gave me like the Menu vibes. They're not necessarily breaking the fourth wall, but it almost feels that way because they're giving a nod to the audience, like
Mhm.
saying, "Hey, this is titled this. We're letting you know. We're kind of giving you a peek behind the curtain as to maybe a foreshadowing to what's going to happen in this act."
And I
So
even
I
like
like that.
the parts were very matter of factly titled. Like I think one, I don't know if it's the first one or second, it's just literally called The House.
The house,
Like,
and
no.
then the last one being titled "The Last One," which is the
Yeah.
title of the last Friends episode, which was great.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Um, but yeah, so I like the journey through it, and maybe we can get into some of this in impact and some other stuff. But or you may have some questions coming up with the animals. That part was kind of weird. I've kind of just chalked that up to. I think in real life, sometimes people are like, "Oh, animals have sixth sense; they can feel when things are changing in the environment." So um, I don't know if they were really. I guess they were trying to alert the characters, but there was a little ambiguity there.
So I meant to watch a YouTube video that basically explained the ending from a different perspective. So, as I asked these few questions, if anyone listening to this review has a theory outside of the ones that Nate and I posit, please comment below because I'm very interested in other people's perspectives of this film. But Nate, I guess I'll just start with my main question, which might be a stupid one, but I think this movie sort of dips into a few different both genre elements and then obviously theorizes a lot on what is actually happening. So, especially based on that shot where Julia Roberts' character and Myla Allah's character are looking at New York City, basically like tearing itself apart. Are we just to assume that it was some country or a combination of countries that unleashed a cyber attack on the U.S. and now like we're basically just tearing ourselves apart at the seams, or is there some other element going on? Because like the noises that were happening, the kid's sickness, which I'm going to ask about in a second, and the animals,
Mhm.
all could either be red herrings or could be signs of something more either supernatural or maybe more nefarious.
Yeah, from my understanding, it was one or two other countries trying to tear the U.S. apart from within, kind of like Mahershala Ali's character was describing. So, yeah, whenever they're looking at New York City getting destroyed, I think you can hear like fighter jets coming in and then bombs being dropped, basically. So, I think whoever is behind the attack is finally coming in, and I think there is some maybe truth. I can't remember, maybe Kevin Bacon's character mentioned this part, but Archie, whenever he starts losing his teeth, thinks it may have an effect from the sonic boom or whatever the sound, the large sound was that was affecting everyone so bad. I don't know if there's some truth behind that. As far as the teeth falling out, they said it in the movie, so I don't know factually if that's there or not. He did mention Cuba, and there were reports of like uh, whatever these devices are called that cause this terror and like the ringing in people's ears in Cuba within the past year or two. So I know there's like some development of some weapons of more or less mass destruction that do cause that ringing in your ear. I don't know if it's to that degree. Um, so I think there's a little obviously fact and fiction mixed in there.
Okay, because the other thing I had about the kid's sickness, they go out of their way to show that some like tick or like leech bites him.
Mhm.
But the reason that I thought there was like maybe a horror or supernatural element, I'm not a doctor, and I know that it's hard to believe for people at home. But if you got bit by some bug and even got Lyme disease, like it's basically overnight that all of his teeth fall out. That seems like insane to me.
Yeah,
Like he
yeah,
sleeps once, wakes up, and he's fucking like an 80-year-old man with dentures.
yeah. I don't get what the tick was unless it was supposed to be a red herring. Um, and I guess the ultimate conclusion is that it was the ringing sound that caused it because I think it was after the first one, or maybe it might have been the second time it happens. He does say, "Oh, I should have covered my ears quicker." So they kind of
Oh,
throw that.
okay. I
They kind
missed
of
that part.
threw that nugget in there. So I don't know if it's like if the explanation is supposed to be like it vibrated his head so much, like his teeth are rattling out. Basically, that's
Got it.
kind of what I took it as.
But I also think part of it is like we purposely don't get to know what's going on because that's the position the characters are in, right? Like that's
Mhm.
part of the
Yeah.
paranoia is like, what the fuck is this? Because a lot of theories make sense.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great point.
A question I had that, again, maybe was just another part of building tension and paranoia, but when the two kids go out to that like shack partway through the woods, who was sleeping there? Like there was clearly an imprint in the ground from someone that had recently slept there. And again, that just adds to like how fucking skeeved out you are because he's like, yeah, someone could have been watching you sleep. And you're like, the last thing we need to worry about right now is a voyeur. Like I feel like the world is collapsing. And now there's some dude in the woods who's like could be watching us. So did you get a theory behind that? Because was the kid just trying to scare his sister like a classic like big sibling move, or was that something that like I missed that was referenced or mentioned?
No, I mean, I don't think there's anything missed. I think it was just them playing off the brother sister dynamic and trying to scare her. I'm assuming, well, I don't know, because now you start thinking about it more. Like the impression was pretty fresh and released.
Yeah.
You would obviously think it was just like a gardener that's there that maybe he's not there right now because the house is being rented out to other people, but he usually is there. But yeah, that's another aspect that's kind of just left up to the audience to decide because nothing's really, to my knowledge, expounded on with that one.
And like I said, it's weird because you're literally as the audience, you're like, that's creepy as fuck, but there's so much other weird shit going on right now. Like we're gonna have to table that.
Yeah, we'll round back on that one.
And then one other question I had. So the Thorns, right? That's the name of the house that the movie ends in, like the people
Yep.
that have the bunker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Kevin Bacon alludes to the fact that one of his friends, who is also a contractor, built this like end of the world bunker down there, like next level shit that he wasn't even allowed to talk about.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering is, um, what do you think happened to the Thorns? Because it's weird that they're not there when they were like the most prepared for this situation. Now, I don't know if they like that's a house that they're just not in that often, but the
Mm-hmm.
movie kind of plays like something must have fucking happened to them because they were the ones who foresaw this coming, prepared for it like pretty recently, and then for
Yeah.
whatever reason they're not even there to utilize the bunker when they actually need it. And I didn't know if there was like theories behind that you had.
Yeah. When I came away from the film on that one, and maybe this is just an oversimplification, but it obviously seems that they're out on Long Island. People have a lot of vacation homes out there. Mahershala Ali and his family obviously have other places they stay if they're renting out theirs. I'm assuming that the thought behind that is that they were in the city, they got caught in the city with all the
Couldn't get
chaos,
out.
and they couldn't get back to it. So kudos to the other family because now they get to benefit from it and hunker down.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of made sense. I couldn't tell if when the daughter was in the house if it looked like someone had like attacked them and hurt them or if it was just like she had basically ransacked it to get their snack food.
I think she just fucking went ham on all the candy and snack foods.
What do you think caused her to actually wander off like that, given the circumstances? Because she seemed like a more heady character than one that would just like leave her family in a position where they were scared shitless about her. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, the like her driving factor is kind of the like focal point of humor in the film is that she needs to finish the Friends series. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a little bit ridiculous even for a child character to like have that be her motivation to, despite all this craziness, to just like wander away from her family in search of, I don't know, internet or some way to watch this show.
Yeah. I think it kind of ties back to the animals trying to tell the humans something. And I kind of just pieced this together now. I hadn't really even thought about it. But she gets so infatuated with those deer that came up to her. I think that kind of makes the animals acting weird a little more relevant to the story because they ultimately caused her to get stir crazy, know something is going on because the animals are trying to tell her, and escape from the family, but really find the bunker, which ultimately will hopefully save them, which is kind of where they left it at. They didn't really tie it up in a bow at the end, but I think they left everyone in a well enough spot to where the audience can assume that they're all going to get to the bunker. So
Yeah.
that'd be my explanation behind that part.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, that's all I had. I didn't know if you had any questions that you wanted to throw out there.
One, this really doesn't even affect the plot too much, but I literally had to pause this and go back. Julia Roberts and Mahershala Ali's character are having a dialogue at the table drinking, and he says something about in my line of business, and then she goes back and says, "Well, yeah, you're just numbers and all this." Was it ever explained like what his job is?
It was kind of weird because in the beginning he was just like a simple financial analyst who claimed that just one of his rich clients asked him to move some money around. And then I don't even know if he was being forthright with his daughter, because I feel like as the movie went on, he sort of inadvertently divulged that he knew way more about this, or knew about it
Yeah.
way further in advance than he seemed at first. So he claimed to be like a financial analyst, but I feel like he might have had some different dealings than he
See,
specifically said.
that I thought there might have been a part because like that obviously with the several conversations that they had, I got the gist that like, oh, he's in finance, he manages people's money, so things like that. I guess I just missed the part earlier in the film where he actually like said that, because I was like, I don't remember them actually saying like, oh, this is what I do.
Yeah, the only thing I remember that like kind of alluded to that was after him and his daughter got to the house and they had to
Hmm.
stay in the basement, or the whatever the downstairs was. There was a
Yeah,
scene where his daughter said to him, "Do you think this is what your client warned you about?" And it seems really ominous at the time, but as the movie goes on and you realize Mahershala Ali really isn't keeping anything from, like, he's pretty much been honest about everything he knows. It
yeah,
was just that one client said that, like, good luck, basically, and I'm taking
yeah,
all my cash and out of here.
yeah. Um, Other than that, I'm trying to see. Yeah, yeah. As far as the story, yeah, everything else, like I said, it as far as the ending, it wrapped up enough, and Mahershala Ali's character gave us enough to where I was relatively okay with what was going on, because it was pretty ambiguous before that. I feel like they gave the audience enough to be satisfied. And like I said, the ending, they didn't wrap it up in a nice little bow and say, "Oh, everyone got to the shelter. They're all fine. They're all going to hunker down there." But um, uh, Mahershala Ali's character, Ethan Hawke and the son, they know that's where they're supposed to go next. Julia Roberts' character and the daughter, they're literally right by the mansion, so that's the next place they're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then the daughter is already there, so um, I think I can wrap
Yeah,
it up in my head enough to be happy.
and I think what I like about this movie is that there are tons of movies out there that sort of present this scenario, right? Like the end of the world, or like even like Red
Hmm.
Dawn, right? It's like a scenario of like us getting attacked by a foreign country. But what this really does is it hunkers down and just deals with almost in real time, obviously not exactly, but like the first 36 hours of not knowing what the fuck is going on and like trying to
Yeah,
manage those emotions. And then after we deal with that, like that's the journey it takes us on. Like, I mean, crazy shit could happen after that, and I'm sure it does, but like that's not really the story I'm interested in or that they're telling here. It's kind of cool.
yeah, yeah. I think the overall story that they're trying to tell here is uh, that people do treat people shitty, and most of the people in this arc finally get to the point to where they realize how to help each other, and that ultimately through bad experiences good things can happen, which is kind of what they're saying here is, hey, a
Yeah,
civil war is going to happen, but people are going to band together and team up, and some good is going to come out of this.
very well said. All right, best scene. This was a long movie, had some incredibly well edited scenes where they built tension by like cutting back and forth between multiple arcs, which I thought was really well done. I can think of two specific times they did that very effectively. And then on top of that, I don't know if you mentioned this off Potter at the top, some really unique cinematography that sometimes when it's done poorly, stuff like this, like horizontal shots or like long pans, I look at it and I'm like, dude, that is so fucking pretentious. Stop. But it actually kind of
Mhm.
worked in this for me, especially that scene with the Teslas all piled up where the camera turns
Yeah.
horizontal. I thought that was pretty cool. But what stood out to you as far as your best scene?
um, my best scene would probably be, I've talked about it a couple times, but um, when Ethan Hawke, Mahershala Ali, and the son um, all go and finally get to Kevin Bacon's house. And
I was wanting my Kevin Bacon after we saw him in the beginning. I was like, he's gonna come
yeah,
back, obviously, and I'm ready for it.
I know there was a lingering look from Julia Roberts' character, so you're like, he's going to come back eventually. So um, I mean, you get the most resolution there ultimately, and then you get a preview of conflict that's going to come because of what's happening in the world right now. And Kevin Bacon's character is just laying it out. Hey, it is what it is. I'm trying to protect my family right now. Good luck to you. I'm not going to harm you if I don't want you to, if I don't want to, if I don't have to. But then that ultimately leads to what I was talking about earlier, and Hawk's character kind of coming full arc with himself, him basically admitting, look, I'm useless. I don't have any technology. I can't do anything. I'm going to do the one thing I can do. And that's when they connect, him and Bacon connect. He's like, look, man, I'm trying to do what you're doing. You're trying to protect your family. This is all I can do. All I can do is beg. All I can do is try and barter and make this right. It's just a cool scene because he finally just like lays his heart out there and ultimately gets what he needs and what he wants. And then you kind of get the resolution with Mahershala Ali piecing it together. And that's kind of the biggest resolve in the whole movie, is the culmination of that scene. So there's a lot to that one, as far as resolving plot threads, and then also big character arcs coming through, and seeing that conflict really mesh out there.
Yeah, it was cool because in that scene we finally get to see Mahershala Ali and Ethan Hawke's. And people at home might be pissed off that we're not referring to their characters' names. I just don't remember them, even though I have IMDb.
It's easier for me to say the actor because I know that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But their characters' feet are like finally put to the fire, and like this has been a crazy fucking day and a half. But now they finally are forced to make a decision that like you would only have to make in this crazy scenario. And it's cool because the whole movie you're kind of waiting for like the quote unquote scientist to show up and explain what's going on, and Kevin Bacon kind of fills that role, but in a perfect way where he's like, dude, I don't fucking really know either, but I'll tell you what it looks like is happening. Like, I'm not the guy here that like intercepted a message with information, but I'll tell you what I've heard and why I was buying 72 water bottles yesterday at Kroger, because this is what I think's going on. So that was just a really cool scene, and like you said, the characters like had to make choices that they were not prepared to make, and it really kind of exposed who they were as people. It's cool.
What about you?
Mine is another, just like a cool character moment. And it's funny in a movie like this that builds so much tension and has some cool visuals. My favorite scene actually was just Mahershala Ali and Julia Roberts' characters, where they were just having that drink as Ethan Hawke and Mahershala Ali's daughter were smoking the vape. But him and her just both kind of realized, like, hey, we've been shitty to each other. And I think part of them, they wouldn't admit it, but they were like, this might literally be the end of the world. So I guess it's time for us to kind of like say things that maybe we either have like regrets in life for like how we feel about where we ended up as people, which was just a cool like character moment that they had.
Yeah, it's really nice resolve there with them, and that leads into them going and kind of taking a reprieve from it all, and maybe getting a little lost in themselves, being drunk and dancing to the record. So that was a nice. It was a nice moment. I mean, it kind of made me feel awkward because I'm like, well, your daughter and your husband are over there. So
I know. Yeah. I did forget it. Like the scene does get a little bit weird and uncomfortable, which I think it's supposed to, but just them at the
table. For sure.
And then it kind of pissed me off when his daughter was like, he wanted to fuck me. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Like, I'm like, oh, come on. He was just being he's a nice guy. What do you think?
Yeah,
he's a people pleaser.
Yeah.
God, come on.
Yeah. But again, that's her character, is like zero worldview outside of her own. All right, on to Impact, which is usually just where we wedge in anything that we didn't fit into any of the other categories. So Nate, the impact you feel like this movie will have either on the year's like look at films, where it ranks for you, maybe what it'll do for Netflix, or really just anything that doesn't fit in our other categories about it that you wanted to say.
I'll just continue to sing really Netflix's praises because they put out a lot of good stuff this past year, and this kind of is the cherry on top, I would say. Kind of their last moment here at the end of 2023 to put this on here, because they put out some good stuff. I'm trying to think of stuff off the top of my head, but All the Light We Cannot See, a series I just got done watching recently, which is really great, World War II series. And there's a ton of other stuff on Netflix that I've watched recently. Just kudos. I think I've been singing it all year, Netflix praise. So that's about all I have to say on that note.
Do you think this movie will have any chance at cracking maybe like a top 5 list for you this year?
It'll be close. Yeah, I'll have to like start reviewing. I'm sure we'll do something on the pod as far as breaking down the year review, but yeah, it could be close. It could definitely be top 10.
Because I gave it a Brosker nomination for Best Film of the Year, and as I was looking at that list, I was like, it's in the mix here. I mean, I think it's definitely a strong way to end the year for sure.
Yeah.
Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, yeah, top 10, probably not top 5.
Impact for me, dude. I need Mahershala Ali in more stuff. I really do. He's just such a talent, and I hope that his Blade movie doesn't continue to hit snags because him in the MCU is something that is just like a dream come true. And again, he does so much when just effortlessly. He's like the guy that it just like all comes so easy to, and I just love watching him on screen in any type of
Hmm.
role.
Yeah. And especially in the first act of this movie, that's how he was. He was calm, cool, collected, and he just came off so easy. And every word that came out of his mouth was pretty easy.
Yeah, he's great. All right, last thing, rewatchability. I got to say, this is one of those movies that like it's pretty heavy and it's pretty intense. I don't know if I'll go back and rewatch it anytime soon. But I definitely think like if we could get you, me, Cycly on like a commentary of this, there's some really, really interesting conversations that could be had from it because it's definitely a thought-provoking movie. Even just outside of the standpoint of like what's going on, I always love watching these being like, how would we react in this situation? Because this is a film off the top of my head that number one uses technology in really creative ways, like even things like the Teslas being hacked.
Mhm.
But then also, there's not a lot of character decisions where you're like, well, that's stupid. Nobody would ever do that. You know, like the characters kind of act, I feel like, in a way that I might in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as rewatchability, I think there is some here. And it's one of those I think you can rewatch and pick up on things and maybe answer some of your own questions that you may have accumulated through the first watch. But then also just the cinematography, the way it's shot. Um, I think whenever they first get to the house, especially there's one shot that I literally don't know how they did. They like start filming Julia Roberts walking through the house and going up the stairs. I'm like, where's the camera? Like, what kind of crane is this on that they're doing?
Yeah.
Are they doing this on a drone? It's like flipping upside down. So I just think visually, I think it'd be another cool one to watch and maybe pick up some of the nuances and subtleties that they put in as far as camera angles and things like that.
Yeah, there was another shot they did that was sort of like the reverse version of that, where I think it started with Julia Roberts and Ethan Hawke and then went down into like the basement downstairs to Mahershala Ali and his daughter. But it was all like it was patched together like it was one take. And I was again like, how the fuck are they doing this? Almost the house is like a sitcom set where it's like sliced in half.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. A little Wes Anderson vibes too with some of the framing, but obviously way different films.
Yeah. Just a really interesting movie. And yeah, again, I don't know how I feel about it, but I'm very interested in it. And it was just really quality filmmaking, I could tell through and through, and great acting, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if you don't 100% agree with the story or how the plot plays out, like I said, I think the acting, cast, and the cinematography and how it's all shot is enough to entice anyone out there listening to go watch it at least. It's definitely worth your time to go watch this one and form your own opinion about it.
Yep. Nate, last thing I'll ask you before we let the people go. Mahershala Ali and his daughter Ruth's, his wife and her mom, that she's definitely dead, right? Like there's no chance they ever see her again.
No. If she made it on a plane, they already saw enough navigation issues with the planes and the ships that it's not going to work out well for her. And if she is not on the continent, then she is definitely not getting back home anytime soon.
Yeah, if she's in Morocco, I don't know how we would get in touch with her at any point. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, bye. Love you.
That's a shitty realization, but unfortunately, I think mom is dead.
And I think one of the like most intense parts of the movie is where the daughter Ruth kind of like realizes that she's old enough to be like, I don't need you to sit here and like sugarcoat this for me. Like our mom is fucked, right? Like no, there's really no way that this ends that we see her again.
Yeah. That's a sadder part of the movie for sure.
Yeah. All right. Anything you want to leave people with before we let them go for our Leave the World Behind review?
That's it. I hope you guys enjoy your holidays coming up and enjoy any other episodes that we're going to be putting out soon, and then look forward to some year-end review and some wrap-up stuff like that.
Yeah, it's Brian Banner. If he were on pod just because when this came out, he'd be like, "Is this a Christmas movie?" We would say no.
No.
Oh, okay. Just thought I'd ask. Not the slightest.
Might as
All right,
well.
for the American hero, Nate Thurman, I'm the mayor, Jeff Hornacek. We are the Bro4 Squad podcast. Thank you guys for checking us out. You can find us on our website, bro4squad.com. We post everything there. We have our squad blog, links to all of our socials. We're on X or Twitter at Bro4Squad. And if you type in Bro Force Squad as 3 separate words on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you find podcasts, you'll find us there. Till next time, Nate and I need to go back to the Bronx Symphony. I left my coat there, so we're just going to swing by.
You're always doing that.
It's really just an excuse to be seen again by those people.
Oh no, paparazzi are here. Oh,
Take my eyes, but not this shit.
not the shirt.